Great to see you all this morning, a bunch of outstanding women. I'm your moderator for this session. I'm usually fronting the BizAsia desk for CCTV-News, the state broadcaster that's had its own issues with staff breaching ethics in the past couple of months, if you live in China and follow the news. So, let me introduce to you our star-studded lineup today. They come from different countries and very diverse fields. As this is a women's event, I have a rule, which is gentlemen first. I'm going to invite on stage Dr. Chen Hong, the founder, chairman, and CEO of Hina Group, which is a China-focused investment firm and investment bank. Please put your hands together for Dr. Chen. Dr. Chen, of course, as I said, now heads up Hina Group, but prior to that, he also founded GRIC Communications, a company that he took successfully to the NASDAQ in 1999, making him the first Chinese mainlander to run a US-listed company. He also co-founded the Huayuan Science and Technology Association, which is a prominent hub of Chinese business people in Silicon Valley and here in China. And should I mention that Dr. Chen was also a teenage prodigy. He took the college entrance exam at the tender age of 15 back in 1978. If you live in China, you know what that means. Back in 1978, being a teenage prodigy meant quite a lot. So let me go to my next guest, Ms. Lu Zhiying. She is the Vice Chair and Chief Branding Officer at Tsinghua Tongfang, which is one of China's largest tech firms. And thanks to her, she has been able to promote the brand value of Tsinghua Tongfang so that it's become listed as one of the world's top 500 brands. And for that, she received the award as one of China's top 10 chief branding officers. Before her career in IT, which started in 1999, Ms. Lu was in public service and was also a radio DJ for a show about, you guessed it, women. So I'm feeling the pressure here. Please, some applause for Ms. Lu. Our next guest is Ms. Shinta Kamdani, the CEO of Sintesa Group, chairwoman and CEO, I should say. The Sintesa Group is an Indonesian conglomerate that has about 17 subsidiaries and 4 industry pillars, being consumer products, industrial products, property, and energy. So a very big company. And her entrepreneurial spirit showed even in her teenage years. She was selling books door to door at the age of 13. And she also took over the family business and transformed it. And in fact, in the early days, she was faced with the Asian financial crisis, so no mean feat there. Shinta is also active and leads in many social and business organizations. She's the founder of Global Entrepreneurship Program Indonesia and also president of the Indonesia Business Council for Sustainable Development. For that, she has received awards, amongst others, from Asian Business Leadership Forum, Abu Dhabi in 2012. She was also listed as one of Asia's 50 powerful business women by Forbes in the last 2 years. So, please, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Ms. Sintesa Kamdani. And in fact, she just flew in this morning and she has to fly out at midnight because she has lots of business engagements. So we thank you for your time. And last but not least, Ms. Kaori Sasaki, founder and CEO of ewoman, which is a think tank and consultancy, founder and CEO of UNICUL International, a communications consultancy, and also founder and chair of the International Conference for Women in Business, which is Japan's largest working women's conference. And she's done that for the past 20 years. So that's pretty amazing. She serves on several corporate and advisory boards. She was appointed by Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe on the Regulatory Reform Council just last year. So please, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Ms. Kaori Sasaki. And if Ms. Lu's not giving me enough pressure, Ms. Sasaki used to be a news anchor and also a news reporter. She's a media regular and she's written several best-selling business titles. So quite a lineup we have for you. Now, ethics. It sounds good on mouse pads and recruitment brochures. It's something that many companies say. Every company has their code of ethics. But if you were so easily observed, then we wouldn't find our former colleagues, in my case, affiliates and former interviewees, again in my case, found for breaches or violations of ethics. And especially in this very globalized environment, how do we exactly make those tough decisions? Let's ask our panel. I'll start with, as I said, gentlemen first. Dr. Chen Hong, you have run a US-listed company, and you're currently running a China-focused investment bank. So tell us about your personal experiences in dealing with dilemmas on ethics.
This is a very big question, but the first I'd like to say that I'm very happy to be back again to this stage. I was in this APEC Women's Conference last year, and this year back again when the cast invited me, because the reason I'm coming back again is that I think I'm a very strong supporter of women being a leader and CEO in the business world. Because the first company that we took public on NASDAQ was I started together with my wife. And then after we've gone public, and she started her own business and took that business into a pretty sizable stage. I think last month, she sold her business for a few $100 million US. So it's a pretty sizable company on the global stage. So being working with a lot of women in business for a long, long time, so I'm really a strong supporter of that. I believe that I think in the business world, men and women are the same, so we can do it together. Regarding really coming to your key question, I think being born in China and grew up over here, and then doing business in the United States for almost like 20 years, and coming back and involved in the business of investing and investment banking in China for the last 10 years, I've seen quite a lot of what's happening, because I think there's a lot of people's behavior is quite different. The way of dealing with business is different, because if you look at the basic nature in the United States and China is that in the U.S. we always, in U.S. always see 先法后情, right? The law is first, and then your relationship second. But sometimes in China it's called 先情后法. Means that the relationship is first and the law is always second, because a lot of other things. So I think because of the big culture gap, clearly you can see the business behaviors on both sides are quite different. I think that's something a given. It doesn't say that which way is right or wrong, but I think in China per se, I think China is gradually starting getting to the point of where the government is really putting a lot of emphasis on penalizing those that are not ethical. Always before the discussion, I was having a discussion among the panelists that was saying that the reason that in a country where you have a lot of unethical events happening in the business dealings is for a very simple reason. It's not because of when we're born, both sides, we're not the same. We're same. Everybody's born equal. We're all the little kids, girl or boy. But it's as you grow up in the environment where you're starting having your philosophy and what thing can be done. When you're doing something due to corruption issues, others, But in China, what happened over here is what we find is even the copyrights or other things for the we call it enforcement in China is very, very small. For example, if you do something wrong, unethical, stole somebody's copyrights, and then the law will just penalize you for maybe $10,000 US. But in the US, if you stole a single song, that single song penalty is $10,000 US. You think about where you have a heavy penalty, you intend not to do things in the not right way to the right way. I think from that perspective, we can have a little discussion about the personal feelings, etc., these things we've encountered, but I just give you an overview of that. I think the ethical discussion, corruption discussion, other discussions in the business world today, in different kind of words, things are different. But in China, I think we have problems, but we're starting gradually getting to the problem, solving those problems, become really having a global standard, because specifically more and more Chinese are going to be listed in the United States. We have to be really go to be monetized, to be judged by the global investors community.
陆女士在这个清华同方商业道德这方面是怎么样的？
麦克。
对，您拿。
你说。
我说在清华同方在商业道德这方面是怎么样做的？
我是来自清华同方的。我也想这个在回答您的问题之前呢，先说一句题外的话，就是 APEC 的会议呢，我已经参加了几次了，每次呢都是在谈我们的高科技，我们同方的一些项目在中国还是在国际上已经到了什么样的程度。然后最不同的是，每次下面的观众呢，基本都是黑压压的一片，基本上是以男士为主的。所以今天让我特别的兴奋，这个五彩缤纷，我要早知道的话，今天也不穿一身黑来了，明天我一定换一套亮丽一点的。其实我觉得这个话题太大了，就是讲这个商业道德这件事儿。但是我觉得其实根本离不开一个企业的目标。比如同方从一成立开始的时候，我们就定了一个远大的目标，其实就是做世界一流的高科技企业。到今天我们已经17岁了，那么17年来，其实因为有了那样一个目标，所以虽然中国的市场环境上还有一些不尽人意的地方，尤其从商业道德来讲，但是从我们的公司呢，其实从一开始我们就是严格的按着这样的一个高的标准、国际化的标准，在做这个我可以说在我们所有的经营当中吧，是以那样一个标准来要求自己的。那么，所以这17年来，我们得以比较健康的发展。也许在这个过程当中，我们有时候会失去一些短期的利益，但是从长远的看，我们还是很健康发展的。那实际上讲的这个问题，我觉得商业道德可能我们先，我个人理解，我们就要先从这个狭义的来理解一下。比如说，我们在讲经营的这个过程当中，可能我们首先要想到说，一定是要有制度啊、规范啊，等等这些东西。但是大家也看到了，因为我发现在座各位还是大多数吧，还是可能在中国本土的比较多。那么有很多企业和个人，他会恶意的绕开你所有的法律法规，然后我们的法律法规呢，又是有一定的限制的，就是说它没有那么完美。所以我觉得这个时候我们是要提这个商业道德的。商业道德它已经跨越了经济的这个范畴，其实已经到了人文社科这个方面来。所以我说这个话题是比较大的。
Ms. Kamdani, how does the Indonesian business cultural landscape compare, business ethical landscape compare to other countries?
Yes, perhaps. First of all, thank you for this opportunity. I always enjoy speaking in a women forum. Perhaps I can share a little bit my background and my story. I come from Indonesia, which is, as you know, a major population are Muslim. So when they look at me, this is Shinta with triple minority, which first of all, I'm a woman. Second of all, I'm not a Muslim. And third of all, I do have a Chinese descent. So they call me with a triple minority. As a background, actually, when we look at in Indonesia, in landscape, in business, we have a diversified business community. My family comes from a Chinese descent, so it's Indonesian with Chinese descent. And actually, my grandfather started the group 95 years ago, so it's been a group that has been in Indonesia for quite some time. The thing of being a Chinese Indonesian family business is that they have certain expectations in how family members have to continue on in the business. So with me, it's the same. I mean, I think I started to be exposed to family business very early age. So when we talk about ethics, when the first time ethics is really more on the family values that has been embedded in my life, in how we have to follow our attitude, our behavior. As you know, discipline and independence is a very big part of it. So I live with that. I live with that family value, exposed to the business, and family and business becomes kind of intertwined because I'm exposed very early. I started very early, so it's really something that I always follow through. So when I look at Indonesia, of course, when you go outside of your own business, you see that, first of all, the culture play a very, very important role. So when we look at the woman in Indonesia, we still are there with a lot of inequality. And I think emancipation has gone far away. But unfortunately, there are many, many opportunities that are still lacking from the woman's side. So I was raised with this condition of Indonesia, that women are still lagging behind, that needs to somehow be given these opportunities. So in many roles that I play right now, I do inspire and being motivated by pushing myself for leadership positions, because I really want to show that women can do it, right? In many of the organizations that I'm involved, it's mainly male-dominated. Like in the Indonesian Chamber of Commerce Industry, it's completely male-dominated. So I think it's really positioning, in how to view women in terms of a lot of this leadership role. Now, in the ethics itself, so once you kind of position in terms of what business is in Indonesia, I think as far as continuing on the family business, one thing that I make a difference on the transition is that how I can transform a family business into more professional management. So this is what I did. Actually, we went through a lot of development in the group. In 1989, I started full-time after I graduated from the US, and that's another thing, because we all educated in the US, we bring in another Western culture, obviously, coming in, live in Indonesia. But I think one thing that remains with me is the family values, and how can I then transform these family values into our corporate values? Now, my father doesn't believe in these kind of things. My grandfather doesn't either. So they never had this kind of values. What are values? Why is values important to be shared to our employee? So to me, that's the basic and foremost important thing, is to have that corporate values, and to build the legacy is I transform our family values into corporate values. So we have 4 of our corporate values today, which is empowerment, entrepreneurship, excellence and empathy, and that becomes our corporate values. And what I did is, the most important thing is how then to translate the behaviors of our employees following these corporate values. So besides of KPI, key performance indicators that I set up for performance-based, we do also do KPI for our corporate value, which is related a lot to ethics. And we have an ethics committee that's really following this through. So the KPI also follow through a lot of the things that we believe is not just performance-based, but a lot to do with the behavior. So I think ethical responsibility of a corporation, I think, is one of the most important things, and we have to reach to that level.
Okay. Thank you for those comments. Ms. Sasaki, you were telling me offline a little while ago that in Japan, if a train, a subway, is late for 30 seconds, there is an announcement of an apology to commuters.
Yes.
What does that say about, the standards of ethics in Japan?
Right. Well, the ethics is a very important thing, as she just said, that it's very important for the corporations and for the government and society, families, and all that. Yes, that in Japan, that if the train, public train delays 30 seconds, then you will hear an announcement on the platform that the train is delayed for 30 seconds, and sorry about that. So the reason is that is all the workers are trying to live up to what they're expected to do it. Everybody would like to really devote themselves to the best and the better quality of their services. So they do not allow themselves to be delayed or, to have a worse quality. Then I would like to just mention about the difference between ethics and compliance. That in Japan, for many years, that the compliance was a big issue, and to keep laws and the very work legalese and be aware about all those laws and regulations and all that. But that the keeping laws is not enough. That the ethics is something that integrity that you come from your heart, and then also the ethics is something that the way you work or when you behave is well respected from the other people. I am sorry to mention about some kind of Chinese incidents, but from the old world, when I saw a 2-year-old girl were run off by the car and then lying on the road, and 18 or 19 Chinese people passed away, not really helping her. And then, was it illegal? Maybe no. There's no law that you have to save a wounded person, right? So it's not illegal. However, is it ethical? That meaning that are you proud of yourself that you did not do anything? If it's a person or company, when it's a private scenes or working situation. So this is ethical. So that it's ethical is more deepened and it's from your soul. So that those are the things is now, of course, again in China, that in all the world, that food safety and all the other issues are actually all coming from those ethics. And then the second, I would like to mention a bit about this connection between ethics and the productivity or the corporate innovation.
In other words, does it make good business?
Yes, actually, yes. That I had opportunities to give a lecture at the Beijing University about a year ago for MBA people on diversity. And I was very surprised that China accepts the theme of diversity. That's one thing. And actually that I'm very happy to do the ethics theme in this kind of the conference in China. But this is the big theme, that the diversity is important, not only physical diversity, but the thinking diversity. That you have to think, and you have to look at one thing from a different point of view, from a different standpoint of view. So when you do business, maybe you are chasing in a short-term profit in that time that you are not caring about environment. You are not caring about maybe safetyness sometimes, or child labor, or others. But when you start thinking about a different point of view and checking your business or work attitude from the different point of view, then maybe it takes longer, it costs more. However, that company will be respected and actually profitable for longer time. So that's the kind of like the key point of ethics and diversity in the corporate business.
Okay, Ms. Sasaki raised a very good point, which is, what is the rule of thumb for deciding if something is ethical? She said, you know, can you ask yourself, can I live with this? Can I be proud of this? Can I go to sleep thinking that I have done this? What are the other rules of thumb that our guests have? I know some CEOs say, if this were to be exposed on the front page of the, say, the New York Times, would I still do this? What about you? What's the rule of thumb that you use to decide?
I think when you everybody in our daily life, we see a lot of occasions where we have to decide we should go this way or that way. Just give you one good example, and then also happen to be example done by somebody else, was that when we started the company, the first company in the US, we sold that company to another company. We made money, but it's not a lot of money to our investors. When we started the second company that eventually went public, we had two choices. We can either close down the first company and make investors some money, then we start the second company with all the shares in our hands. And when we go public, we make a lot of money, right? And then the decision we made that time was that we felt like we didn't do a good job, only return a little bit of money to our original investor. We actually shifted the equity of those investors into the new company. Then we took this company public. Of course, our shares been diluted in a significant way, right? Because the old investors enjoy the upside of both sides, but the company is successful, and we own the trust. And then when my wife started the second company, which she later on built it into a very sizable global corporation, was that the original VCs, private equity VC firms, almost on pro rata basis, invest in her company. That's the trust, I think. Another company is also here, like Meituan, I think is doing very well, and will be a multi-billion-dollar company in China again. The same thing. His first company started, failed, and then later on, in his second company, the original shares holder, some company got equity in his new shares. So this is something where it's really, there's no law says that you have to do one way or another, but it's all the ethical and the feeling. So I have a strong belief that I think when you're really starting doing something in the future, as long as you, from your heart, you to be ethical. For example, information you cannot disclose to somebody else, you have to keep to yourself. When you sign a contract, it is a contract. When you say something, it is something. We cannot do something where we sign a contract, as some of the people would do, say, don't worry, we sign a contract, wrap him up, and then we just talk later on. You can't have those type of things. So I think it's a gradual way of doing things. Also, I think for the incident she mentioned, I just listened 2 years ago, I saw that video, and a lot of Chinese people, when they saw that video, they're crying inside. It is a terrible thing, and a little kid was not being taken care of. But it is again coming back to my first, the points, right? Why people are kind of ignorant to such a thing. There are probably few reasons. Number one is clearly probably a lot of people are going looking for money, and they're not worried about anything else. That's what the food issues, other issues. Other things are coming back again. The same thing about a penalty, about other ethicals. And also in China, a lot of incidents happened. Probably other people saw. You help somebody, and then they said how you are responsible for the incident. And then there's no law or enforcement to protect those people. So I think a lot of other things, but I think really what I like to see that I think that at least from China, from what we see today, is going to the brighter side. and we're starting to talk more. Even look at what Xi Jinping is doing today, anti-corruption. As a matter of fact, since last year's anti-corruption events, we in the business world have seen things change dramatically. We like the outcome. We don't need, a lot of people don't need to worry about, whether somebody's not proving his thing for certain other reasons, because now you can really do the business as is. Of course, habit has been formed for a long time, needed time to be changed, and people behavior have to be changed. But I think that's something which we see to a brighter side.
我觉得这个商业道德这个话题哈，从企业来讲呢，我觉得可能我们可以从更宽泛的角度去理解。比如说，一个企业产业方向的选择，我觉得这是它最重要的一种道德。比如说同方我们在做2个行业，两个大的领域的事儿，一个就是 IT， 那 IT 呢我们以工程为主，还有一个呢就是节能环保。 那么在这个下面，我们大概现在有这样4个大的板块。第一就是公共安全，这个公共安全，我们这个安全呢，其实包括了我们下面的很多公司，比如说有做芯片的，有做安检设备的，有做密钥的等等。那我想我们在座各位的每个人，中国人，你们的口袋里都有我们这方面的产品。2代身份证的芯片是我们做的。 我曾经在一个另外的一个场合在发言的时候，我讲过，我说我实在想象不出来，还有哪一个产品能每天装在全世界1/4人的口袋里。还有这次巴西的世界杯，这刚刚过去不久，我想大家都是很关注的。它一共有12个球场，那好，同方它的11个球场的安检设备是由同方来提供的。 当时他那个招标的时间实际上是很紧张的，那最后我们一批机器运到的时候是开幕式的头1天安装好。这个时候其实我们没有考虑到我们的利润怎么样，我们能挣多少钱，而是说我们要保证这个世界杯要按时的开幕，要不出问题，要很安全。我觉得这个，所以我在讲，我说第一个我们其实宽泛的讲。 一个企业去讲这个商业道德的时候，实际上产业方向的选择是很重要的。第2个，我觉得是它的模式也是要考虑在里面的，就是产业发展的模式。同方的模式是孵化器的模式，因为我们是一个背靠清华大学的企业，那么我们刚开始在成立的时候，我们是把清华大学的一些技术。 已经科研发好的技术，研究的成果吧拿来，然后我们看市场端也已经有这个需求了，然后我们来做这个中间这个产业化的过程，所以我们把它叫做孵化器。那么10几年来，我们孵化了很多产业，可以说在全世界也是孵化的成功率很高的。为什么要讲到这个模式呢？就是说。 其实我们有一个数据的统计，中国就是科研成果的80%几，其实是被束之高阁的。论文完了，无论是硕士的、博士的论文完了，其实也就摆在那儿了，凭职称用而已。真正有多少用到了跟人类的发展有关上面？有多少用到了贡献国力上面？ 这是有待于商榷的。那么同方做了这件事情，所以得以使清华的很多好的项目，现在已经用在了国计民生上。那么我们实际上，我们的这个董事长一直在说的就是说，同方到底要做什么？真的不是一城一地的事儿，也不是某一个项目，我们真的是要做一些对国力有贡献的事儿。 对人类的发展有贡献的事儿，比如最近 APEC 我们参加了很多会议，那么其实我们在这里面最重要的一件，我觉得是对21个经济共同体都会有贡献的事情是，我们作为发起单位，发起了这个进行了这个可持续化、城镇化建设这样的提案。 我们希望21个经济共同体能够在这个经验上共享，能够在资源上统一调配，为了使将来21个国家的城镇化建设得以更好的完成。比如说，我们在这个里面提到了，我们的提案其实上个月在这个西雅图已经通过了。我们是从很多方面，比如说制定标准啊、保障机制啊、包括推进模式啊等等，都做了一些提案。那么我想，如果这个提案最后得以实施的话，实际上对整个这个亚太地区的贡献也是非常大的。那么第二个我想讲的是说模式的问题。那么第三个讲的是，实际上我在想，在经营过程中，刚才我的同事讲到的是说，在经营的过程中，我们怎么样做到合规？我们怎么样做到合规？还有就是我们怎么样做到诚信？这个真的是跟制度是最底线的，规矩是最底线的，但是境界是最高的。中国改革开放30几年来，其实我们用了很短的时间，完成了在经济上的几次大的飞跃。其实我们是存在很多问题，比如这次我上次也是一个会议上，一个美国人、加拿大人问我说：“你对中国发展的前景乐观吗？”我说是乐观的。他说为什么？因为你们现在中国的问题很多，你们的空气也是污染的，水是污染的，食品是污染的，人的思想也是污染的。我说，但是我告诉你，中国确实发展很快，这是你不得不承认的。30几年前，中国没有那么多的人可以受这么好的教育，毕竟我们现在这个受教育的程度提高了很多，对吧？那个时候中国还有很多人吃不上饭，现在这样的人极少，等等一系列的变化，说明这些年来中国是在发展的，确实有了很多的变化。当然，因为发展得很快，所以它必然带来一些问题。我说，就像一个小孩，他长得很快，他有无限的这个精力，那他整天跑跳，他有时候会摔倒，他有时候会划破，但是因为他有强大的生命力，所有的这些疤痕会长好，所有的这些弱小它会慢慢强大。我说中国现在也是如此，所以我说第3句话是前景一定很好。那么再说一句话，就是说一个是合规的问题，那么慢慢我们会学会，我觉得要给中国人一些时间，包括中国人自己也要有信心，给我们一点时间，我们要进步，我们要成长。最后一个就是诚信。那同方品牌的内涵，我们做了一个调查，我们的清华同方，当你印到中国人的好多他看到这几个字的时候，他会想到4个字：科技和诚信。这也是得以同方在这样的一个环境里面，其实它是一个后来者，跟很多企业比起来，我们的起步是很晚的，但是走得很快，走得很稳。因为一方面我们讲创新、讲科技，还有一个就是诚信。谢谢，多占用了一点时间。
我想在座的各位对中国的前景也都是很乐观的。Shinta, the Sintesa Group has about 17 subsidiaries. So how do you filter down the family values and the corporate values that you talked about?
Yeah.
How do you know they're not doing things behind your back?
First of all, I think I agree with my fellow panelists. I think this is a borderless world that we live in. So despite where we are located in the world, you know, I think being an organization that needs to have added value, it's no longer about just profit, you know. And I think this is where each organization, each corporation already look forward vision, you know. In our group, I think when I started taking over and restructure basically the group and put myself there as with my entrepreneurship hat as well, I realized that the main important thing for me was the people, because we need to speak the common language, right? I mean, with so many different operating businesses, everybody going their own direction on trying to achieve profitability, we miss that main important basic things, the basic values on how the people of Sintesa wants to achieve. What is our common goal? What is our vision? So for us, we agree that our vision is to be a sustainable excellence company. Why? Because we want to be competing with other companies in the world.
But what happens when other companies are unethical and they have lower costs, or they have higher profits, or they win projects over you? Does that ever happen?
So I think we need to understand that profit is not the only component anymore. We have passed that. So why I'm talking about sustainable excellence, because I do believe in sustainable development as well, with the three aspects of profit, people, planet. And this is where we incorporate in our group in terms of how we want to achieve profit, but we also want to have the social responsibility through its people, and we want to be a company that is environmentally friendly. And when we talk about environment friendly, it's not just, the easy part is, of course, in developing products and projects that are environmentally friendly. And that is something that we can decide, in terms of, what kind of project we want to get in, how to save the planet. But I think the challenges, and the good thing is, okay, you want to promote the brand that you are green, that is your added market value. But what are the challenges? I mean, when we live in Indonesia, we realize that businesses in Indonesia still operate the way of the things doing business. Corruption is still there. I mean, admittedly, how do you do business without corruption? This is so much easier. I mean, people are campaigning. I mean, really, we are campaigning now for the new leader is in place. And of course, anti-corruption is a big campaign. But it's not enough to just talk about anti-corruption. When in actuality, we still face issues that businesses can't go on without bribery, when regulations are very uncertain, are not implemented properly, and legal uncertainty is still very big. I mean, how can you operate like that? So in one side, I think it's easy to make yourself, to have this positive...
To preach.
Sorry?
To preach.
Yeah, to preach and make an organization, yes, we want to be like this. But in actuality, in the reality check, is we have to understand that the locality of the doing business is still very much there. And because this is in the mentality of the people, in our bureaucracy, that we still face in our government, can it change? People ask me, can Indonesia change? Has Indonesia improved?
Can China change?
And I think we have to be realistic. So I think in terms of course, I'm a bit, I have to be optimistic. We in the private sector, we are now very much pushing this issue of anti-corruption, human rights, all. But at the end of the day, it's more the execution program that is important. We have now the anti-corruption committee. Very much it's become very, very tough. For government officials and things like that. But it's not. You cannot change it overnight, right? This is a whole process. And the whole process is changing the mentality of the people. And I will go back to education. That is really the basic. When we talk about ethics, it's not just ethics, it goes back to the education of its people. And I'm a big promoter of education of the Indonesian people in how that we can start as early as possible to develop this mindset within their people. Because that's the only way we can move forward. We cannot just rely on what it is today, We have to think through from the beginning. And I think this is really the basic. The people is the basic. And unless we can do that, I think it's very, very challenging for us to, on one side, promoting our organization and wanting to be, ethic-friendly business and so forth. But in actuality, the how to do business in our country itself creates issues that if we want to operate as a business, there are things that have been done as the way of doing business there. So I think this is a crucial point when we talk about ethics. I think it's no longer about just talking about it, but how can we really formulate it in the execution that can actually really happening and can be implemented, So I think that's the key.
Very important points, education. Mr. Sasaki, you mentioned very strict codes of ethics in Japan, but we still have occasional corporate scandals like Olympus, like LiveDoor. So what happened there?
Yes, the other, I am not saying that one country is better than the others. Ethics is really the start from individual, right? So that it really depends on the individual. And that really spread into the section or then spread into the company. So that, and Olympus and others are in the boardroom. And again, that is what a lot of people say it's a governance issue. But I think it's a diversity issue, again. Like, because the governance issue is like, again, like a different point of view to one decision making. If there is a woman or outsiders or other point of views, the people sitting on board, that does not happen. So in Japan and also maybe in China, I'm not sure, but a lot of Western countries are now talking about the women on board. The women on board is also the issue to strengthen the governance of the company, of a company, and also that it would hopefully to have the company more ethical as it is. So.
In fact, there's data showing that in a country where the Senate has female representation, the chances of that country going to war are reduced by 5%. So
only 5?
Well, maybe it was only one senator. Okay, so we talked about some ethical issues. I'd like now to open the floor up to take questions. Surely you have your own thinking about business ethics and how to observe them given this increasingly globalized and litigious world. So if you have any questions, please raise your hand. And yes, lady at the back. And please state where you're from, your name, and to whom you're addressing the question.
Okay. My name is Noneng. I came from Indonesian Government Security Printing. I have one question for Ms. Shinta related to your experience. Actually, sometimes ethics and business are opposite. My question is, how you make it life in harmony about ethics and business? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the question is, how do you align ethics and business when sometimes they're on opposite sides?
I think I touch a little bit on that subject. Sometimes we have this direction, and on actuality, in terms of us to be an ongoing business, we have to make decision on a different direction. Sorry. Not okay. I think as a leader of an organization, we need to be very clear on our identity, who we are and what we want to be.
Have you ever had to sacrifice profit?
Oh, definitely, many times. And I think this is a decision that we need to make. What kind of organization do we want to be? And this is why when I touch about profitability, I said it used to be, my father would say, okay, this is the target, so let's see whether you can keep up with what we have developed in the past years. Unfortunately, now it's a different world. Profit is not the only element that is important. So yes, there's many sacrifices that we have to make. Why? Because at the end of the day, when you have decided this is where we want to be in terms of our organization and what kind of ethical values we want to follow, then we have to keep and stick to it, right? And this including sacrificing a lot of the things that business may ease way, of doing business, that we have to sacrifice it because some ethical values are being jeopardized. I wanted to give you a very small sample about a very reputable businesswoman in Indonesia, actually what she does was very, very simple. Everybody in Indonesia does it, You call it a bribery issue, whatever, but it's a licensing issue. A licensing issue, there is, of course, to smoothen the license, to accelerate license coming out, you have to give bribery. In actuality, everybody, all businesses are doing that. And the amount is not even big. But now, she's in jail because of that. So this is very much a lot of the things that when we want to set that target, okay, we want to change. Indonesia wants to change. I think we in the private sector, we in the business needs to support and stick to that. And a lot of time is no longer just a business decision. Because business-wise, if you look at in that respect, of course, the direction is completely the opposite of what we are supposed to do. But I think this is, in my experience right now, we are reaching an era in Indonesia that we need to be. I think it's no longer an issue that the government is faced. This is a multi-stakeholders issue, and I think the private sector businesses play an important role in how ethics can be impacted in business.
And Ms. Sasaki has something to add?
No, I just would like to say that ethics is nothing to do with the sacrifice of the profit. That I think that ethics is the business. That the business is not only the money profitability, it's the long-time things, providing good workplaces, attract good people. Ethical company attract good people, loyal people, and good quality, and admire from all over the world. It's a global citizens as a companies, so that it's nothing a profit or social responsibility or profit sacrifice, but you have to do something better. No, this actually that ethical behavior is the business, and that is actually the winning keyword for the future business.
Thank you for that. More questions? Okay, lady in the orange jacket.
各位嘉宾好，请允许我用中文跟大家来说一个问题。因为我们大多数呢，可能都是一些在北京的或者是全国各地来的中国人。那么呢，我觉得啊，刚刚讲的这个话题，商业道德呢，这个确实太宽泛了。从我个人的经验来讲，我是做 Certified Public Accountants 的，所以呢，查的企业无数，是中国当年的第一家的会计师楼。那么呢，从我这30几年的职业生涯里边，我看到了太多太多的我们出的问题。那么我认为商业道德不是一个企业单独能做到的，它要一个全社会的治理。从个人来说是要有诚信的，这是我们刚刚我们这个清华同方的老总讲了，它是一个做人的最基本的一个底线，但是又是做一个人生的最高境界。那么企业也要讲诚信，政府更要讲诚信。我们现在好多的职业环境，包括我们现在的营商环境，大家觉得有不尽人意的地方。那么呢，实际我们是在制度、在惩戒、在整个一个全社会的治理方面，我们有一个道德的缺失。所以呢，我觉得我们现在今天在座的，可以说都是各个行业的精英，也都是一些女性的一些领袖。我倒是有一个呼吁，真正的从我们自己做起。你一个好的领导人会带一个好的团队，一个好的团队会有一个好的企业文化，一个企业文化会影响整个的社会。我们虽然没有能力去改变很多的东西，但是至少我们会保留一块净土，我们至少会做一个合格的社会企业公民。谢谢大家。
我比较同意你的观点啊，我就说这个，但是就是我的的确确是中国这个我们在全球也去了很多地儿，也做企业、做投资并购等等啊，就发现每个国家和每个国家是不一样的。哪怕讲到印尼啊，讲到日本啊，讲到美国，其实跟中国都不太一样。中国的财富在过去的30年中积累特别快，贫富差距特别大，这就导致了呢，况且的薪酬体系也不一定非常完善，这就导致了拿着8000块的钱的人呢，要去批 100亿的生意，然后他批完以后呢，那个人就拿着这个路条呢，就变成了亿万富翁，是吧？在这种环境之下，人性总归会有所以我说，在中国的过去发展这么多年，有这么多不管是 ethical 的问题，各方面的问题，其实我们表示非常强烈的这个反感，但是也有理解之处。现在但是看未来怎么办？我觉得习主席做这件事儿，至少说这个反腐，其实对企业界来讲是一个很好的事儿。大家发现饭局不再用花5万块钱、10万块钱了，其实几千块钱、几百块钱就搞定了，对吧？不需要把事儿办了要吃饭了，我觉得这是一点。另外一点就是从企业做起是一定要做的，刚才我们举了很多例子。但是从政府方面也呼吁，他一定要在这个方面进行体制上的改革，否则的话呢，凭单一企业有时候呢，你的力量是有限的。我想就是说，这是一个整体的社会问题啊，大家共同来解决。
我个人有一些想法哈，就是说我个人的观点。我觉得要解决这个问题，其实我们还是要从根本上去解决。说到根本，其实还是教育的问题。2个问题，一个是教育，一个是体制。一个是教育，一个是体制。我们怎么能够从这个体制上来保障？设一个线，对吧？这个是当然很重要，还是一个教育的问题。比如现在的很多人，我们一般讲人生3观，这个。价值观、审美观还是人生观是吧？我不知道是不是完全准确啊，大概吧。如果这3观对的话，你不会去做那些违背道德的事情。那么，无论是他作为一个企业的领导人、一个政府的领导人，还是就是一个一般的我就是老百姓，我都有我做人的原则，我都有我做人的底线，对吧？如果一旦我们的教育真的达到这样的时候，我想，可能我们今天这个话题就不用讨论了。当然，这是很理想化的。我想，不光是今天的中国，就是美国，就是再发达的国家，其实也有很多商业道德败坏的事情。比如说，我们现在在说中国好像是问题很多，当然问题很多。但是我觉得，任何一个发达国家，它也有很多问题。比如说2008年的金融危机，那不是中国造成的。对不对？他们的制度有没有？有的，规矩有的，可是还是有很多人，那么大的公司绕过了你所有的制度和规范，而去恶意的破坏了这个商业的这个法规，所以我觉得那是一个大的道德的败坏，造成了全世界的损失。所以我觉得要解决这个问题，根本是教育，当然政府的这个。叫什么？制度、规范也是非常重要的，这是我个人的观点。
还有别的问题吗？这边穿黑衣服的女士。
My name is Jing. I'm from Australia. So I led a lot of the China SOE and also private company overseas investment into Australia. So I want to share some of my observation with some of our Chinese company investment going overseas. I think I'm very positive about the outlook of our Chinese company going overseas. From my observation, in the last 10 years, there has been significant change in the way they deal with Western company, especially in the ethical part. I think for me, ethical does not just mean to follow the rules, but also being flexible, respect to the culture, and also being open-minded, and also being very flexible. And I'm definitely seeing a lot of the Chinese company now going overseas become very localized, and also to respect the local culture. And I think, that's definitely a very, very good sign. And I think my question, to the panelists will be, now, even though in China we still have some challenges, but it's also, in a very increasing positive way of the changing. So for some of the Western company now who want to engage with China, they also have some concern about the IP issue, maybe the environmental issue, and also the ethical issue. What tips you could give to overseas company who want to engage with China and give them a bit more confidence when they want to come to China doing their business? Thanks.
Okay, who wants to take it first? Advice for overseas companies investing in China.
我想就这个问题说一点啊，我不知道是不是回答得了你的问题，但是我突然间有想到一个想法，就是最近我不知道大家注意没有，爆出来很多这个 国外的一些公司在中国的问题，比如说麦当劳，比如说肯德基，比如说还有一些日本的公司，不好意思，都是在中国有很多的违规的操作。那好，难道是说你在发达国家的时候你是一个面孔，你来到中国你就是另外一个面孔吗？这是你的堕落还是你的本质呢？
日本公司在别的国家为这个问题也被查过。
对呀，就是啊。所以我在想说，其实我们不要去过多的说，说就中国有多少问题，真的这是一个底线的问题。我觉得是做人的原则问题。你比如说中国人也有这样的，我就看过，比如说可能到美国去了，我不随地吐痰了，我也知道把一个指头，一个瓶子我扔到垃圾箱里，但在这儿他就会一口痰吐到你面前，一个塑料袋在你面前。
这个现象叫做道德漂移，就是说你会随着环境，然后你的这水平会上升或者下降。所以我觉得
道德这个东西，实际上它是一个人的根本，是一个磐石。能漂移就是没有什么道德的，在我看来，至少他的道德水准是很低的。我不知道我是不是回答你的问题了，但是我真的是希望所有的不管哪一个国家的公司还是人坚守住你的根本，不管你在哪里。
另外，我觉得在外国公司中国公司到国际上去肯定要遵守国际的法律，但是外国公司在中国做生意，我觉得也应该遵照中国的一些法制。就像谷歌这个例子，对吧？不管是谷歌从公司来讲，它的理想是怎么样，但是在中国如果法律是如此，你也只能如此。我觉得这就是一个基本上，我就是说，不管是外国公司在中国，我觉得是一视同仁，我觉得是最佳重要的。所以我的建议给外国公司说，到中国来不要太多的关心这个那个，就是说你来了就遵照这个中国的市场规则、政府的规则、法律，跟着市场竞争。我觉得这个时候呢，你就会比较伟大。如果希望中国政府给一个特别外国的公司开一个特别绿色通道，而别的企业不享有的时候呢，基本上是不可能的事儿。所以中国的企业走到国外也是一样，也要遵循人家的法律，不管是法律，包括员工的这个薪酬体系、雇员的情况等等，你都要遵守。我觉得这就是一个，就是说全世界每个国家都是不一样的。但是等到你走到因为我运行过全球公司，当时我们在14个国家有分公司，我们发现说去了法国，你要去裁一个人都得折腾1年，对吧？做美国就几个星期，就2个星期的事儿。这个事儿，这就为什么导致了 TCL 这样的公司在国外并购失败的原因之一。不了解那个地方的，除了政治环境以外，还包括这个雇佣环境。但是我觉得还是这样子世界变得越来越扁平，变得大家都是一样。所以作为一个企业呢，你越来越变成一个世界公司。在这种情况下，不管我们的联想、我们的阿里巴巴等等要走向世界的时候，遵循的法则其实跟微软、跟 BMW、奔驰进入中国遵循的全球规则应该是一样的。
I've just been shown the sign that time is up, so unfortunately we'll have to wrap up the discussion. I'll just recap some of our main points from Dr. Chen. He is a believer that better laws and regulatory reforms will help, and also higher costs of non-compliance will help improve the environment, the ethical environment. Ms. Liu believes that making a ethical industry choice is also very important for corporations, and Ms. Kamdani, among other points, raised that education, which was concurred by the other panelists, is very, very crucial. And from Ms. Sasaki, she compared compliance versus ethics, and of course we should remember that ethics come from inside and not just to meet standards. And she also is a firm believer that good ethics make good business because you'll end up building long, centuries-old corporations like many in Japan. So I'd like to thank all of you for your active participation and listening, and thank you. And of course to our panelists as well.